Thank you very much for joining us today. It's the latest session of LocalGov Drupal Week 2025. I'm Tim. I'm the comms lead at LocalGov Drupal. This session is titled Opportunities for Deploying Open Referral UK with LocalGov Drupal. It's going to be presented by Melanie Wong and Mike Thacker from TPX Impact, working on behalf of MHCLG. Thanks to both of you guys for running the session. We'd like to take this opportunity to thank our event sponsors, Anatech, who hold the development contract currently, Agile Collective, our previous dev team through the alpha and beta phases, and who hold our support and hosting contract, and Big Blue Door, who are currently sponsoring Mark Comrie to work on the platform. Thanks also to all our council and subscribers, supplier subscribers, and our supporting partners who've contributed so much to the project. A little bit of Zoom help, although I think most people on this call have been in a few of these sessions this week already. Just in case you haven't, you can decide how to view the meeting in the top right under View. Please add any questions in the chat. There's going to be quite a bit of time for discussion at the end, so please just jump into the chat as we go, and then we can pick up some of those topics and themes towards the end of the session. We are recording the session, so perhaps turn off your camera and mute, at least for the start, and then when we get into the discussion, maybe we can all turn them back on again. I'm now going to hand over to Melanie, who's going to start the session for us. Thank you, Melanie.
Thank you, Tim, and hi, everyone. I'm Melanie Wong, a delivery manager at TPX Impact, working with the local digital team at the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government on the Adopting Open Referral UK Data Standard project. I'm here today with Mike Thacker, who is the subject matter expert for all things Open Referral UK Data Standard, and some other people from the team, I think, are also in the chat to talk to you today. So can I just check if people can see my slides? Because I've got a very cute picture of a beetle sticker.
Looks
cool.
good.
Thank you. So this session will hopefully have a little bit of everything. We'll do some information sharing about just what ORUK is, if you don't know already, how LocalGov Drupal supports ORUK, advantages of implementing it and why everyone should. And then we're also going to leave a bit of time for an open discussion. So we'd love to hear your thoughts, comments, ideas for where this can go next. Do you use it? Do you not want to use it? Things like that. If you have any questions as we go along, please do comment in the chat. I'll try and keep an eye on everything as we're going along, but yeah, this is going to be good. So what is ORUK? At a really high level, Open Referral UK is a government-endorsed open data standard. It's been endorsed since 2022 by the Central Digital and Data Office, which is, I think, now part of GDS again. And it's an implementation of the Human Services Data Specification, providing a consistent way of recording and sharing information about services. So this can be information about very specific services targeted at adults or children with specific complex needs, all the way through to more general volunteer or charity-run services meeting the social needs of a community. And if you've been following the ORUK journey for a while, you'll know that the standard was actually developed by councils through the Local Digital Fund some years ago and continues to be supported by MHCLG to drive adoption across the UK. We're still going. We're going to get there. So just to, I guess, just sense check who's actually here in the room. There's lots of lovely faces, lots of people I've seen before, some people I haven't. So we'll just do a couple of quick poll questions. Hopefully this is anonymous. So oh wait, I get to do the poll too. It's quite exciting. Do I have to do the poll before I can see the answers? Does anyone know this?
So the poll will run, and only the host can see it live. So Tim, you might want to comment on what's happening.
Oh, only I can see it. Oh
And you
wow,
can see
okay.
it.
I didn't
Yeah,
know, did not know that.
and then at the end you can end poll and then share results for you more. Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
Okay.
Thanks, Aaron. So yeah, there's 3 questions here. Just please answer honestly, quickly, don't overthink it. As I said, we just want to know who's in the room with us today, and we won't ask you to do any follow-up on it. And now I think I need to do the poll too. Exciting.
So to give you the running commentary, question 1, which of the following best describes your organization's current use of the standards? 33% are aware, 20% are considering, 7% are adopting, 13% live, and 27% unaware. That is changing slightly as more people answer, but that looks like final results. And question 2, what's your organization's current appetite for putting time and resources into adopting them? Low is 25%, medium 56%, and high 19%. To put that into context, that's 4 people, 9 people, and 3 people. So if you haven't yet done the poll, please do the poll. And the final question, how technically confident are you or your team? Very confident is at 29%, moderately 14%, slightly 29%, and not confident at all is 29%. How long would you like me to run this poll for, Melanie? Do you have a...
Do you have a sense of how many people have done it?
I think we're probably, I guess, in terms of number of councils that are here as opposed to suppliers, I think we're probably nearing like
Says 17 of 20.
80%.
There's 17 of 23 people have participated.
Yeah, but so
I can't participate because I'm a co-host, so I just see the results. And I
I think
can't
that's.
make you a co-host, Melanie. So I don't.
I think everybody.
I'm going to end the poll.
I think we're good. Thank you so much. That's really great. Oh, whoops, hang on. No, don't leave. Sorry, click the wrong button. Thank you everyone for doing that. That's really interesting. And if you have never heard of Open Referral UK until today, do not worry. We have a website, we have resources, we have guidance, we have all sorts of things sort of aimed at varying levels of interest. So please stay with us and let's keep going. I am gonna just bring us back down now to just delve into a little bit of the detail, which I think was a pretty good thing to cover at this point. So I'm going to hand over to Mike Thacker to just take us through a little bit more about how our ORUK works and why it's useful. Mike, are you there?
Yep, I am. Thanks very much, Melanie. And that poll is interesting. I was expecting a lower number than 24% to be unaware of the standards. So let's start with the basics. What you probably are aware of if you work in a council is traditionally councils have lots of different directories. I think we came across one with 12 or 13 directories of services covering things like SEND, special educational needs, adult social care, health and well-being, what family information services, what they call the local offer, leisure services. And typically everybody wants their own directory because they don't trust anybody else's and they want it to look their own way and they want their own services, even though all of these directories have overlapping subsets of services. And much to the horror of myself and probably many of you on the development side here, so many of them use kind of 20th century development techniques whereby the database and the business logic and the UI are all wrapped up in one application. And although it's open data, the only way you can actually access it, unless you're party to that development, is by scraping a website. So there's a lot of duplication of data. There's a lot of a lack of trust in data. And there is, contrary to the local government declaration, which drives so much of what local digital does, there is that vendor tie-in by having applications take ownership of the data and limit who can access and do things with it. So the ethos of Open Referral UK is to break that up. And if we can move on to the next slide, Melanie, Open Referral UK provides a structure for delivering data describing services. And that's open data, whereby one organization can have many services and lots of information hangs off that service record. For instance, schedules and the locations at which a service is delivered. And the standard has field names for that, and it tells you the format of the data, and particularly in the case of taxonomy terms used to categorize things, which taxonomies references are coming from. So typically each service is referenced by a service type, and that gives us a logic that we can use in other systems. And the UK version of Open Referral is what's termed a profile of the international Open Referral standard, which has been going a lot longer and which has formal approval processes and formal management, which is actually by a UK-based cooperative, the Open Data Services Co-op. So we are part of the group that defines that standard, and Open Referral UK profile has a subset of the international standard, but shares a lot of resources and shares the ethos of having an open standard and an open way of communicating data. And if we move on to the next slide, Melanie, this gives a pictorial overview of what's called the HSDS, the Human Data Services Model, which illustrates that each service record has that organization and a service. And these are some of the categories of information that can be stored against a service. Now, most of that is optional. There are a few things like the UUID of a service which are mandatory, but most of it is optional, such that people can start to publish, and as data is shared and used over time, it can be enriched, and different profiles can use different parts of that standard for different purposes. As Melanie said, the standard is approved by the Government Data Standards Body, which has reviewed all the open processes for version control and non-proprietary management of the standard. And strictly speaking, the standard is mandated for central government where it's applicable, albeit it's taking some time to adopt in parts of central government, whereas in local government, because of localism, it's not mandated, but it's encouraged. And MHCLG's and indeed the LGA's commitment to the standard shows that people are taking this seriously. And for some time now, MHCLG, through the local digital program, which also kicked off LocalGov Drupal, is backing and promoting the adoption of the standard. So if we move on to the next slide, the main thing this slide is there to illustrate is that the standard is an API standard. It's a standard for the interchange of data. So we don't care how individual databases store the data, it's how we get it out and transfer it between different systems. And those arrows towards the bottom of the screen show the part of the standard which I guess has been most widely adopted so far, which is the use of one API feed from one database within a council to feed multiple front ends. And I think we've got Alex Sturtevant from Greenwich here. And my understanding is that Greenwich are using the standard to feed a family information service as a service directory and are now looking at using that same feed to feed other directories. Southampton is another example where they have one feed feeding data into a web service directory, but also directly into web pages which describe particular types of service and are there to address particular needs. And the concept is that we can feed that data into web pages, into referral teams, tools used by link workers, and indeed use it by innovators. For instance, people looking to use natural language processors to analyze somebody's need and refer them to relevant services. And it being an open standard, we're keen to encourage innovators rather than rely on local authority to provide everything itself. And indeed, the standard is there to both encourage innovation and to drive people not only to public sector services, but to community, voluntary and private sector services, and thereby take the load off local government. So those bottom arrows to different UIs show one thing. And if we can go back, Melanie, you're jumping the gun there, thank you. The other thing, the arrows on the right are supposed to show how data can be drawn from many sources into one aggregated database. The concept here being that each record is maintained only once, and ultimately the goal is that we only have one data record with one UUID for each service. And if that service is referenced by multiple councils, for instance, if Brighton and Hove and East Sussex are referring to the services, to the same services, just one of them takes responsibility for each service, and there may be responsibility passed down from services passed from central government or from community and voluntary organisations. And that data is aggregated within one database such that we're not duplicating effort. And indeed, one of the big immediate advantages of Open Referral UK is that you can bring the data together in one place and not duplicate effort. I should say that some of that saving should be put into improving the quality of data, but the API standard facilitates that bringing data together. And I'm hoping we'll hear from EECS a bit later, but my understanding is that Drupal does support not only the GET RESTful web methods that are mandated within the Open Referral UK standard, but also a post such that you can post data from other sources into a Drupal database rather than needing to key it directly in there. So if we come on from that diagram, Melanie, to the next slide, with its reference to LocalGov Drupal. LocalGov Drupal is defined to work both as a consumer and a publisher of Open Referral API compliant feeds. Now, as a consumer, and we have an example of this in Greenwich, Greenwich is actually using a product called Outpost, which is developed by TPX Impact, as its publisher of an API feed, but it's using LocalGov Drupal to consume that and present that to users. And it's doing that courtesy of adopting a post from Outpost directly into its feed. And equally well, it should be able to use feeds from other organizations. For instance, PlaceCube has, as part of its standard Open Place directory product, an open feed in the Open Referral UK format, which would equally well work, should equally well work, with the LocalGov Drupal front end. And conversely, if you can use LocalGov Drupal as a publisher, and when LocalGov Drupal was run out of Cumbria, we had a demonstration of LocalGov Drupal providing a feed of services out, which was tested through the validator tool of Open Referral UK, which I'll come on to. I think Will has suggested we might revive that feed to illustrate LocalGov Drupal's capabilities, but it can provide a feed. And again, EECS may be able to give us more details, but there was some concern. I think the poll indicated that something like 29% of people were nervous or unsure that they had the technical capability to comply with the Open Referral standard. Typically, we find that the technical barriers to adoption are quite small. Often we just don't hear from a developer such as Echo, which did it for Southampton, until they say, we've finished, here it is. And it's a matter of, if you've got a pre-existing database, of mapping your fields to the Open Referral API standard and just outputting data compliant with that standard. So it's not as big a job as you might fear, and there is technical guidance for that, as well as a formal JSON schema. But as I say, to some extent, Drupal already does that, but it may well be that Drupal adopters want to get together and look at refining and improving that. And I think the way it's currently developed is compliant with version 1 of the schema, and the schema's moved on a little to version 3, so there are some improvements there, and there are further backwards compatible improvements in the pipeline, which, if you have a need for them, we could publish as part of the UK updated profile. So what I'm hoping this session will result in is a group of enthusiastic LocalGov Drupal people that say, I want to consume feeds, or I want to publish feeds, or I want to work on tools which will improve those feeds, such as an aggregator, because at present all you can do is post data in. There is no kind of control, quality control on the data you receive. There's no coping with duplicate records from different councils. So they're the sort of features which we might expect groups of enthusiastic LocalGov Drupal adopters to get together and say, look, we've both got this need. We're two adjacent councils, or we're two councils using feeds of data, say, that's coming from Ofsted that we want to combine with our own data. Can we work together on tools which will bring that data together in a Drupal home and share one another's learning and put that in open tools? So that's, I guess, what I'm hoping this session will lead to. Just before we go on to that, if we can move on just to what the overall advantages of
I
Open
will just jump in there, Mike.
Referral
Thank
UK
you.
are. Yeah.
EECS has sort of clarified in the chat that the LocalGov Drupal, the thing we're all here to do, the site does have a feed but doesn't have organizations at the moment, so we know that we need actual data to be able to validate it. This is a known problem, which we're going to get to in a sec, telling you everyone why they should be implementing ORUK. And yeah, like, everyone, if you're still there with us, have a think, because what Mike is suggesting are some really exciting opportunities to really shape and think about how we use this data, how we can develop features that will really work for what's needed right now. So
Thanks, Melanie. Yeah, I think that's why I'm glad to have you here, Eeks, because there's a lot of theory, and when we get down to the practice, there are little things which stop things being compliant. And we have on the Open Referral UK website a validator, and you simply give the endpoint of an open referral feed, and it tells you what's not compliant and what's almost compliant that we think you should do something about. And typically when people such as PlaceCube or London Sport, who have a feed of sports and wellbeing activity that's Open Referral UK compliant, when they try that, it might fail the first time, and within the space of 24 hours and a couple of chats, we've sorted it. But obviously you've got to have the core data to make that work. But technically, it's probably less of a challenge than a challenge to get the powers that be within a local authority or a council commissioning services from a private sector supplier to say, this is the way to go. And that's what the next bit is all about. So advantages of implementing Open Referral UK. And this is typically what we say to decision makers and service leaders within councils. Easier access to find data, better quality of data, and the standard in itself doesn't guarantee data quality, but it provides a basis for improving data, for sharing that data across multiple people. So multiple eyes means you're more likely to get that data right. It also means that because data is in a standard format, we can all share data quality checking tools. For instance, what they do in Bristol is say, we are excluding from our directory any data that doesn't have a last assessed field that is within the last 3 months, i.e. any data that's not been validated within the last 3 months, they exclude. There are also richness checks to see how complete the data is. And once those tools are developed for one feed, they'll work with any feed. So again, that's an argument for us working together on these. The model behind Open Referral is designed not only to help self-service users, but to help frontline workers, linked workers, whether they be social prescribers or adult and child social care workers within councils, to help refer people to services. And there is a taxonomy model, which I won't go into, which helps identify which types of service are most appropriate for which user needs. And there are savings from deduplication of data. They're probably more quantifiable savings, and the Open Referral UK website does have some statistics on that. But there are also the quality savings in terms of better referrals and removing effort from other services, for instance, self-service, removing people from council services or directing people to community services, or indeed bringing to the NHS more social prescribing rather than drug prescribing. If we can move on to the next one. So they are the basic benefits, and there is a lot on the Open Referral UK website to help you comply with the standard. There are developer resources to illustrate the standard, the API web methods which you're expected to comply with, and there's only half a dozen. They're not complicated. A list of organizations, a list of services, optionally services which have particular taxonomy terms, and optionally services at particular locations, and details of an organization and details of a service. Not much more than that. And the validator will tell you instantly if you pass or fail. And we're saying to councils that commission Open Referral UK compliant feeds, don't pay your supplier until such time as they've given you a feed which passes that validator. And that is a pass or fail validator. There's none of this, well, we've made it roughly in accordance with the standard. That validator is unambiguous. And there are developer resources to help you implement. But as I say, that's not the hard part. The usual hard part is convincing people that they need the standard. So we have those use cases. We have a business case with statistics associated with it. And we have documents to present to senior managers and to service managers, which describe the advantages of using the standard. And frankly, a lot of that is around the advantages of using any API for shared data, as opposed to tools which wrap up your database and your business logic and your UI all into one tool. So that's a summary of what we've got available. The website also has existing compliant API endpoints, so there's data you can readily access, and you can see how other people are doing it. And it has links to how we can help you if you're stuck. There's also an online forum with a lot of discussion and questions which will help you through that process. So I'm hoping as we move on to discussion, we can have some info from a few people that have used the standard. Maybe Eeks, you can chip in with what you've done so far and where we are, and if there are people who have ideas for adopting adopting Open Referral UK within their LocalGov Drupal instances. We'd love to hear challenges you face and whether or not you're enthused or depressed by what you've just heard. So I'll hand back to you, Melanie.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, I will just throw open the floor to discussion because looking at time, we've not got that much time left. Yeah, any thoughts you've just had? Whilst we can pick up from what people have been saying in the chat. Thank you to everyone who's been contributing there. I'm also going to try and find a way to get those website links without doing something weird and screen sharing something I shouldn't be. But yes, so well, hang on, let's have a look. So Will suggested London Sport, maybe. We've had conversations with London Sport, haven't we, Mike?
We have indeed.
might be on
I'll link
the
to the directory of feeds, but anything can be got from the root directory of openreferraluk.org.
Great. Let's see. Andy has a great question. Does Open Referral map to existing LGD directory channels?
I suppose this is one for me to answer.
Thank
So the Open Referral module for producing feeds basically has a set of configuration pages where you can do the mappings yourself. And it will attempt to default them correctly, which is what we've got on the demo.localgov.org page. But because there is no content in the demo site that is of an organization type, none of the services have organizations. So when you put it in the validator, it comes up with lots of fails because there are no organizations associated with the services. And what's basically happened is all the demo content in a standard LocalGov Drupal directory has been mapped to services. And what we need to do is map organizations as well in that directory. But if you've got organizations and services, you can turn the module on and you can see if the automated mappings work or change them a little bit, and then you will have a valid feed of it out the box, basically.
Brilliant. Thanks, Eeks. I guess if it's a demo, the easiest thing is to link them all to the organization, for instance, the council that's running the demo. I'm glad it's that way around and not the other, because often we find directories are directories of organizations, and you get things like Age UK with 50 different services and you're only interested in one of them. Open Referral UK is very much interested in data describing services, not the organizations that have a whole bunch of services on their own. But basic information on who is running the service is important.
Can I say something? So I'm product lead at LocalGov Drupal. So this is, we want to support this the best we can. We think it's important and useful. It feels to me there's 3 different ways we could do this. So I'm just looking at people in the chat. So I'm just going to call some names out, and you can hate me afterwards. So, for example, Ryan is in the London Council in Hammersmith. And I was thinking, Ryan, would you benefit from having London sport data in one of your directories? I don't know, maybe not. Hannah is in Brighton, and I'm thinking, Hannah, about LGR, like local gov reorganisation, and how we're going to have to get our sort of collective act together. And also, as an Eastbourne resident near Brighton, I actually do look at a lot of Brighton services, but I don't see that data in my local council website. So I wonder if there's some kind of way of sharing this data across LocalGov Drupal and non-LocalGov Drupal platforms. Is there a project there? I did have a conversation with the Essex councils about just that. Like, it's okay having the standard, but how do we actually do it, like day to day? I think that would be a really interesting conversation to have. I don't know anyone here from a health trust, but that was like my 3rd example is, a council and a health trust in the same geographic location are both collecting data of this kind and should be working more closely together. And I wonder if there's something there. So it feels like there's sort of, it's adjacent councils, a feed from above, like a national organisation or a regional organisation, or a council, a health trust, or a combination of those. It's like, how do we find these things and actually work through the practicalities of doing this stuff? Don't know if that helps any.
Yeah, and I think just following on from that, thinking as I mentioned in the chat, I think us as LocalGov Drupal, we could get a demo site set up that does consume a bunch of feeds and present it as an aggregated directory listing, which I think is, we're not far off. We could do that quite quickly. One thing that strikes me is from a council perspective, say from Greenwich Community Directory perspective, if you're consuming feeds from say Lewisham or Lambeth or wherever around London, and you've got a bunch of data coming in, like what's the sort of UX of that? What's the sort of, I don't know, ownership of that, the kind of like clarity to the user that these ones are here, these ones are here, these ones are ours, these ones are not ours, like data quality or all of that kind of stuff. I know that with even just within the Greenwich Community Directory, having worked with Greenwich on that, there's a whole process of submission of services into Outpost and then review and content approval and making sure that, and then publishing them finally to the directory. And that's just within Greenwich. So as soon as you've got lots of data coming in from somewhere else, how do we deal with that in a way that is, useful and meaningful to the end user without diluting the quality of our directory? I just wonder, has anyone done any work on that side of it, the kind of UX and research or design around that? I guess that's a question for Melanie and Mike, really.
Okay, well, yeah, I mean, firstly, on the Health Trust, the Pennine Lancashire ICB has brought together data from multiple councils and health organisations. And some of the guidance on the website talks about techniques for bringing in data and improving quality. But I think that there is a gaping hole in terms of what I call an aggregator tool, bringing data together, going through that approvals process, and maybe saying we've got two services here which are roughly the same. Who's going to take responsibility for them? We have a lot of examples actually from Canada where they do this across a province, which is probably bigger than the UK, are bringing data in and actually, and the latest version of the standard is looking at increasing the provenance data against that. But I am conscious that when people have been looking at moving from a proprietary product to LocalGov Drupal, there is one proprietary product which has what they call a synchronization tool, which says if your adjacent to council is also using our product, you can choose to take certain services from us. And that is to some extent a tie-in, and that is a legitimate need to use that service. But if we almost as a product in its own right, whether or not it's part of the rest of Drupal, if we had a product which simply took feeds from multiple sources and combined them into one feed with somebody saying, I accept or reject this record and here's where it comes from, that would help. But that doesn't exist at present in the Open Referral UK world, although I'm told a commercial organisation that's currently working for Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole is working on that, but they say they're not yet ready to publish it. But I'd love to see an open source tool in that sphere. And the fact that Drupal already accepts posts means, we're some way towards it. And it strikes me as something that you'd want to move forward in steps in consultation between multiple partners rather than just develop a project and dump it on the market.
I mean, in LocalGov Drupal, there's workflow that allows for approval of content. So, we have this idea of sort of authors and editors.
Okay.
Authors can write, but they can't publish, so they send it up for review, and an editor can publish. And this is the thing that sort of, when we talk about this, keeps popping into my head. Could you receive a record from somewhere else? And as an editor, as a content designer in a council, go, actually, I can do a diff between this and the thing we've already got, or here's a new thing that feels like it's part of our proposition, so we could publish it. And I think it's trying to work through that. I think it's finding two adjacent councils, or a council that's receiving records from somewhere else, like London Sport or like Lewisham and Greenwich or wherever it might be, to say, actually, you're writing them, we're consuming them, and vice versa. And this is the arrangement we have. And maybe there's an MOU that goes with it, just something really light touch that goes, yeah, we're going to do this. And these are the things that we're responsible for, and these are the things that you're responsible for. Because I think councils will want that. They'll want to see what they're signing up for and what they're expecting from others. I don't think it's a lot of work, though. if anyone's interested in this. Could save a lot of time in the long run.
I mean, before we end, I would love people to get an idea of expression of interest. I should say we are speaking, potentially with a group of councils within one combined authority. And I'm not sure the extent to which they use Drupal for this. We also, through our steering committee, are talking at central organisations like Ofsted and parts of the NHS to provide central feeds. So you wouldn't just be combining one council's data with another. You'd have the potential to take data that's maintained centrally and stop having to keep your own local copies of it.
I think Ryan wrestled with Ofsted. Maybe you want to talk about that, Ryan, but having something like that would have been a bonus at the time. You might not want to come on camera though.
They might be watching.
Sorry, sorry, I was just having issues there. Yeah, it definitely would have been. I mean, yeah, we moved away from open objects for our family information directory and Sun local offer, and built it all in Drupal, and then had to go through that rigmarole with Ofsted to get a connection directly to the feed, which we were able to do eventually, but yeah, it did take quite a while to do it.
Thanks to your connections, Ryan, we're meeting them next week to try and get over that hurdle, but with a way to go.
Yeah, thank you. I am just aware of time. Thank you for everyone who's had some really great thoughts and ideas. I do worry that we're kind of running ahead with some really good ideas and actually kind of need like some councils or some actual end users to kind of say, yes, this is probably what we need, or maybe we need to tweak it a little bit. So maybe there's something here around like producty people in councils who need to have a bit more of a think about how this could actually work reasonably in their organizations. But I mean, it would be good if by way of like emoji reaction, you can say if there would be interest in keeping this conversation going. And maybe we can set up some sort of public forum or Slack channel or something to just throw ideas in and just see how that's going. Thanks, Jamie. First in. Many other names that I'm not able to read out. Yeah. I think there's potential here and there's opportunity to do some really exciting things. So thank you. Yeah, thank you, Erin. Maybe we can pick up offline and just see how we can keep this group of people together, maybe like expand it a little bit, keep the conversation going.
Thanks, Melanie. We can certainly arrange a follow-on session, I think. I think that would be really useful. I see Aaron's just pasted in the chat as well. So maybe we can pick that up as a core team. We can talk about it on Monday and maybe get back to you to see how we might shape the follow-up. I guess a good place for us to start, like Eeks and Finn have said, is to set up that demo, and then we've got something to maybe show councils at a follow-on session. That might be a good place to start if Eeks is saying that it's not going to take too long to set up. Has anyone got any last points before? Oh, we also have a charrette, as Will mentioned, next week. We're on it. Excellent. Okay.
The demo should validate by the end of that.
Okay. All right. Very good. Okay. So, unless anyone else has got any other comments, Will, in Slack, if you're in LGD Slack, use feature directories finders to chat about this. Thank you, Will. Okay. So, I think we're at time, so we can call the session to a close. Thank you so much to Melanie and Mike for delivering the session. Really useful, lots of good discussion. Thanks for that. Thanks for everyone for coming and for your questions and comments. We hope you found it useful as well. Please give us feedback by responding to the email that you'll receive after this session. Thanks again to our sponsors, Anatech, Agile Collective and Big Blue Door. There are more sessions this week, 4 more left. including one today at 4 o'clock. So please do head over to Luma and register for those. Yeah, use the Slack channel. We'll get back in touch with people. I guess we can send a blast out to everyone who signed up for this session to let them know about any follow-up. And yeah, we'll see you all later in the week, if not then. All right. Take care. Thank you.